If you've ever seen the 2014 Jon Favreau movie, Chef, you may have noticed something strange about the structure of the story and the feeling you had after you were done watching it. I promise, this video isn't about Chef. Aside from the central conflict of the movie that happens within the first 45 minutes of the runtime, the rest of Chef is a pretty easygoing ride through to the end of the credits. Jon Favreau buys a food truck, fixes it up, and then travels across the country with his son and his buddy, making cubanos and raking in cash until they get back home. 6 months later, Jon Favreau has opened up a popular new restaurant, bankrolled by a former critic of his food, and remarries his hot ex-wife. Reading that summary might make it seem like Chef is less of a movie and more of a director's fever dream induced by too big a blunt and an overdose on street tacos. However, if you finish Chef, you'll probably also notice that you enjoyed the film a good deal and had a great time, and that the only noticeable detriment to your spirit being that you were hungrier than you were when you entered the theater. Chef mainly spends its time focusing on themes revolving around identity, purpose, family, and friendship. The joys of keeping the people you care about around you and doing what you love. I bring all this up because in a way, that's kind of exactly what The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet is about. Before you turn off the video, let me explain. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet revolves around a group of people, both human and otherwise, traveling around the galaxy, taking jobs creating wormholes for the purpose of traveling from A to B a lot faster than if they weren't around. When I started the book, I thought for sure that the main character was going to be Rosemary, a human woman trying to escape her past and start a new life as a crew member on the Wayfarer, the name of the ship that our ramshackle group of characters live and work on, as well as the namesake of the series that this book is from. However, as the book continued, I found myself wondering why the focus wasn't shifting back to Rosemary as much as I thought it would, with her being the main character and all. By the end of the book, it became very clear that there wasn't really a main character at all, and that the story I had just read was pretty atypical from any of the other books that I had finished this year. Instead of focusing on some overarching conflict or plot, the book reads more like a series of loosely connected vignettes into the personal lives of the crew members on the ship. Forgive me because I know this is a somewhat long list of characters, but I would feel bad excluding any of them since they all feel so essential to the plot. We have the previously mentioned Rosemary, as well as Ashby, the steady captain of the Wayfarer, Dr. Chef, the cook and doctor aboard the ship, Kizzy, the energetic, talkative technician, as well as her counterpart Jenks, the second technician on the ship, who is hopelessly in love with Lovelace, or Lovey, the artificial intelligence aboard the ship. There is also Sissix, the Andrisk, which is a lizard humanoid person species, who is the pilot of the ship, Corbin, the man in charge of the algae cultivation, which in turn powers the ship, and last but not least, Ohan, the ship's navigator, who through a virus in their body called the Whisperer, is able to comprehend the complexities of multidimensional space travel. From chapter to chapter, we get glimpses into the lives of these people and the complex relationships tying them together. In this unique setting, Becky Chambers uses the world she's created to explore issues of racism, culture clash, gender politics, identity, and a number of other topics that take center stage in lieu of an adventure-filled plot. The book really commits to the idea of character exploration in lieu of traditional adventure and thrill-seeking, as there are plot points in the story that in other books might take multiple chapters to get through, that instead happen off-screen or off-page, and we are treated to the social ramifications of the events and their aftermath instead. What shines through this unconventional narrative is the warm feeling of friendship and family, and the idea that it's those around you that you cherish and keep close that really matter. This may sound cheesy and trite, but the way the book is written is so well articulated and so sincere that I don't feel the least bit of shame in basking in those feelings that we should all be comfortable feeling anyway. In the storm of sadness that is 2020, this book is like a big hug from a friend after you've had a long, bad day. I fully implore all of us to seek out more of this type of thing. Read a nice book, have a glass of wine, take a nice walk outside, call your mom, and maybe watch Chef later, I don't know. I have to admit that when I finished the book at first, I was sort of mildly disappointed, and that my fanaticism for this series was more slow-growing than immediate. It felt as if there was a whole other half of a book that should have been in there between the existing chapters that I was missing out on. However, as time has passed, I find myself thinking about these characters often and wishing that I could read more about their adventures together. I should say here that the second book in the Wayfarer series, A Closed and Common Orbit, picks up where the previous book left off, but with completely different characters at the forefront. I didn't find this out until I had bought the second book after tearing through the first one, and I have to say that I was pretty mad when I opened it up and realized that I wouldn't be taking part in The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet 2, Too Small, Too Angry. With that said, I do recommend A Closed and Common Orbit as well, as it takes the themes of the first book and explores them in deeper and more specific ways, even though the book didn't contain my beloved Wayfarer crew that I had become accustomed to. I don't want to get into too many of the specifics of the first book and the interpersonal relationships between the characters on the ship, but let me just say that I came away from the experience feeling some sort of empathy for every single one of them. It also kept alive the small flame in my optimistic heart that says we should be able to find some commonality and understand each other's differences in order to get along. The series at times reads like a progressive daydream, where most people are comfortable and communicative about their personal traumas, sexuality, and gender. I don't even necessarily feel qualified to dive into why this series handles those topics as well as it does, but I can say that it feels a lot more sincere and empathetic than anything else I've read. Maybe it's the degree of separation that's a product of the presence of aliens in the stories that creates the sandbox for these ideas. Whatever it is, I have to applaud Becky Chambers for making my heart feel a lot warmer than it had been feeling in the midst of everything going on around me this year. There's so many things about this series that should frustrate me, and sometimes they still do, but for the most part, I really love these books, and I'm excited to dive into whatever else Becky Chambers is ready to throw at me. To be honest, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet wasn't even the book I had walked into the bookstore to buy. I had saved her novella, To Be Taught If Fortunate, to my Goodreads account per some random recommendation, but Changing Hands didn't have it in stock, so I went with this one instead. And I'm glad I did. As I mentioned before, I've made my way through this book, as well as the second in the series, and the third one is sitting on my shelf waiting to be read. If what I've read so far is any indication, I'm in for a good time going forward. To conclude, I feel that if you can open yourself up a little bit, and be flexible when it comes to your preconceptions about narrative and plot structure, there's a whole lot to enjoy in The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Part of me thinks this book isn't something that everyone will enjoy, and maybe that it's just my left-leaning open-mindedness that's allowing me to sing its praises, but diving into this story might be the perfect way to wade into the waters of some ideas that you might not have thought too much about in the past. Think Guardians of the Galaxy, but like a little gay. And at the end of the day, if you try it and you're just not that into it, that's totally okay, because at least you tried. And these divisive times, that's all we can really do. That and watch Chef when we're feeling down. Damn, some chocolate lava cake sounds really good right now. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Enjoy the traditional footage of my cats found at the end of most of my videos. If you like what you saw, please give this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and tell your friends. I appreciate all the support, and it's been really fun making these videos and having something to do other than doom scrolling until I go to bed. Love you all, and until the next one, have a great day, and see you later.